Hi friends, this is Caitlin. Today we're celebrating a new Sweet November Stamps release with a really fun YouTube hop. So this is a great one because they're going to be giving away the entire 13 stamp set release to one lucky winner. There's only 5 videos to hop along, and if you're already here, then you've got one in the bag. So to enter in to win, I'm going to have all the details down below for you, but you have to visit each channel, subscribe, like the YouTube video, and leave a comment. So super easy, 5 quick stops. I hope that you'll stay and hang out and watch this one because this card turned out so cute. So we're going to go ahead and jump right in. I stamped out these 2 adorable little mice from this, I think it's Hug in a Mug stamp set. I have the one little mouse who has his mug full of cocoa, and another one who is he's my spirit animal mouse. He's got a little pile of marshmallows, and I masked off my images, and then I masked off a straight line across the bottom. That's going to be our tabletop edge. So I thought that speeding this whole thing up, I thought that ink blending would speed up this whole process and give me a really nice, fun background color here. You can see that I pulled the pattern papers that I wanted to use ahead of time, and I have those up there on the left hand corner so that I can start to color match. I started ink blending with Salvage Patina, but it was too bright, so I'm bringing in Speckled Egg, and I'm going to layer that over until I get a color that's closer to the pattern paper that I grabbed. So it took a little time. I really wanted kind of a vignette feel where the outer corners and the bottom are a little bit darker, and there's some light through the center there. And then I felt like my blending wasn't perfect, and the best way to kind of conceal that is to add some splatter. So I stamped my ink pad onto my glass mat, sprayed some water on it, and I'm just tapping that across the whole little background wall area because this is kind of, could be a wall, could be whatever. I think that the splatter is just like a nice way to add some interest without, going crazy. To start my tabletop, I am going in with my E20 markers. These are colors I don't use a ton, and I've been trying to change it up and kind of expand my color palette that I reach for. So I'm starting by adding my wood grain in. I put a little shadow under the marshmallow mouse and under the napkin that's under the mug. And then for my wood grain, you can see I like to put in a couple little knots in the wood and make kind of a like stretched out oval shape around them. And then from there, I'm just making wiggly lines. That's really it. And in the front, at the bottom, to make it look like it's closer to us and pulling to the front, my lines are bigger and much thicker. And then as we move towards the back, they're going to get thinner, and just generally the shapes are smaller. That's going to make those look like they're in the background. I did stamp my images onto Copic Express-It paper with honeybee stamps and Tense Black ink. Those are always my go-tos when I'm going to be Copic coloring. If I'm using Olos, I do like to use a different heavyweight white cardstock, usually from Pink and Maine. But for my Copics, it's always Copic Express-It and honeybee stamps and Tense Black ink. Once I had my E29 lines all in place, I went in and just flicked in more of that darkest shade from the left and right hand sides. Then I'm switching over to my medium, which is my E27. I'm going to work on thickening up those lines and pulling that color in even more from those outer edges. I still want to make sure that I'm leaving some highlight, but especially on the outer edges, I want it to look darker to continue that kind of vignette feeling from the top of the card. What else? What do I want to tell you guys? This whole release is so adorable. It's a really nice mix of holiday and kind of general winter. There's some really great add-on pieces, like there's a new holiday like decorating stamp set that goes with the Sweet November Stamps front porch stamp set that they came out with in the fall. It's absolutely adorable. I can't wait to use that. I haven't broken those out yet. I also will have another fun Sweet November stamps video coming soon using the waffle flower postage stamp dies. I really love those. I know that they're like super trending still. So if you have those dies, I mean, you can use them also without the dies, but if you have that die set, Sweet November has a bunch of postage specific sized stamp sets that work so well with it. Sorry, back to my tabletop. My highlight shade for my table wood grain was at E25. So you can see I'm just kind of filling everything else in, trying to be careful to not get any of that color into my marshmallows. And then I felt like some of my shadow got kind of neutralized and washed out. So I came back in with just a little bit of that E29, just under the mouse at the bottom and under that napkin. For my mice, I wanted to make sure that they stood out against that wood grain, so I went with some warm grays instead of browns for them. So my darkest shade here is that W7, trying to kind of emphasize that they look a little fuzzy with some extra kind of flicking motions. Really okay with the shading here being a little bit jagged. It'll just make them look a little softer. But I went from W7, W5 down to W3, and that's going to be my highlight shade. I also added just a little bit of that warm 3 into the ear. So when we come in with our R20, it does kind of give a little bit of shading without needing to bring in a red color. I really don't like red on my little critter ears, just personal preference. For both of my mice, I put all of my highlight kind of where the ears meet the face, on the outside of the face, right above the nose, and then kind of along the back and bottom of the legs and arms. For the one that's sitting, I tried to focus more of the shading around kind of that marshmallow that he's holding. It would be creating a shadow. And they both got blushy cheeks, pink noses, and pink ears. Something you will never see me do is add a pink tail. To me, that means it's a rat, and I don't want rats. I just like mice, and I don't like mice in real life. I only like them on my cards. For my marshmallows, I wanted to try something a little different. Usually I use gray for these, but I wanted to try shading them with kind of a creamy color. So I'm going in with E53, 51, and then I think a touch of 50. Yeah, just to blend that out. And in the, with like the harsh lighting of the camera, you can't see it as much as you can in real life, but it looks really nice. I really like it. It almost gives it a little bit of a toasty feel without it being brown. I felt like the darkest shadow wasn't dark enough, so I did bring in a touch of that warm gray marker. And then for my candy cane, you saw me, I grabbed some cool grays and just ran that the whole way around the inside curve, not being careful of like which stripe is which, because that shade's going to not matter once we bring in our reds. So we're kind of shading everything, but really the white is what we're worried about, what will be the white stripes. And then it won't take away from the red stripes in any way. It'll actually make it a little easier for us. I did want to have a red mug because on my pattern paper, we have red mugs. So I brought in some super dark reds and worked my way up to that R27, leaving a nice highlight there on the outside of the cup. I like to put my shadows there a little bit away from that artist drawn line, so we get that really nice curved object shine that you would get with the light hitting a mug like that. And then I needed to start bringing in the green from the pattern paper as well. So I used some YG markers to shade in this kind of center design. It really isn't curved. Like in my head, it's printed flat, but it just has like a gradient to it. So that's why I did my shading so it's darkest all the way around. It's like it's printed on the mug, not so much that I was shading it as if it was a 3D object. And I filled that in the rest of the way with that YG 03. I brought in some of the same darker greens even onto the napkin. So way more of that G28 for the shading shadow parts. And then that YG67, pulling that color through. I wanted it to look darker than the logo on the mug, but still have the same kind of feeling. So I added in that extra dark green, and then what was my medium shade on the mug itself is now my highlight shade. And then I just brought in that R27 for the lines on the napkin. I didn't worry about shading that. There just wasn't enough room. I did bring in some white gel pen to highlight the candy cane and the parts of the mug. I just think this is so cute. So once I had my whole scene colored in, I am going to add this to the top left corner of some white heavyweight cardstock. And I'm going to use my wire trimmer to trim down the other two sides to match. I just wanted a thin little frame that would help separate my scene from that busier pattern paper. And I wasn't sure exactly where I was going to put my sentiment, if I wanted it on the blue or the wood. So I decided to just split the difference. And the top line is on the blue and the bottom line is on the wood grain. I stamped it twice with white pigment ink and then one more time with my embossing ink. And then I went in with Pink & Main's frosting embossing powder, which is a beautiful bright white. And when I had all of that ready and I held it up, I realized that there was just a lot of kind of empty floating space. So I wanted to bring in some embellishments, and you can see up at the top there I have some gold and white pearls, but I didn't end up using those. I actually had to cut out like 10 minutes of footage because I just kept going back and forth. I couldn't decide on the right kind of embellishments. So I finally landed on some clay snowflake pieces, and then these are really pretty teal iridescent rhinestones. And I love how they kind of take your eye from one corner to the other. They make sure that you see all of the different elements, and I think they tie in all of the colors in the pattern paper really nicely. So I'm just so in love with how this card turned out. I am absolutely in love with Sweet November stamps. You guys know that, and this release is amazing. Please go check it out and support them, and I hope that you'll hop along. Make sure you check out all of the details down in the description. I will see you guys back here soon, and until next time, happy crafting.